Okay, I'm going to show you how to do the heel flap gusset toe up rather than cuff down, and it's going to be a little trickier. So you're still going to divide the loom in half and then divide that number by 3. Okay, so half your pegs divided by 3, and I'm using a 40 peg 3/8 inch gauge loom, and it ends up being 6 point something, and so I think I round down to 6, and then it's not even, so I'm taking my larger number and making it the middle, which will be 8. So it'll be 6 over here, 6 over here, and 8. Alright, now this version of the toe up heel flap gusset it doesn't require any stitch holders, but it does require what I call stitch stacking and stitch shuffling. So I'm going to kind of explain how to do this. So I've already knitted 14 over. So what that means is the 6, then the 8. Alright, so whatever the 6 is, which I put down, so 6 and 6 over here, and then there'll be 8 in the middle. So I knit over 6, then I knit over 8. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to do the little heel section first, and what that means is you're going to wrap the pegs, the next peg over, which would be I think peg 15. Okay, so 1 over, and then you're going to knit 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, then you're going to wrap and turn the next peg, and you're going to knit over 8. Alright, and you're going to do this until you have 7 stitches on these outer pegs here. So there's our 8. Wrap and turn. We now have 3. We want 7. Alright, so you're going to work back and forth. And this is a little square heel area. The heel flap is where you have your fun. You wrap. So you continue this, wrapping that same peg until you have 7 stitches. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get 6 wrap and turns, okay? This is technically not supposed to count. And what that means is the 6 on this side and the 6 on this side. And these stitches will eventually get shuffled through to those 6 stitches on both sides of those 8, okay? So pause the video, and when we come back, you should have 7 stitches on these pegs here, and then I'll go and show you the next step. Okay, I'm going to count the stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, go to the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, we're now going to create our heel flap, okay? And as we're creating our heel flap, we're doing the gusseting here. Okay, so what we are doing is I finished here. I wrapped my last one and I finished over here. Now what you want to keep in mind is when you're looking, think of it as a mental, like a part of a square, okay? You have a line that goes up, a line that goes over, and a line that goes down. Okay, so consider this as these stitches line up. If you were to, say, straighten these stitches out, then you just turn them this way and spread them out. But we can't do that in the way that we need to do it. It has to slowly spread out. Okay, so it's the same way on this way. You're just going to spread them out. Alright, so what you want to do when you get here, what you want to do is you want to knit that top one, shuffle over, knit the next stitch, 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 shuffle over, which should be 5, okay, and then you should have 2 left from your 7. What you're going to do is you're going to knit those 2 together, then you're going to decrease that over. Then you're going to move this stitch on top of here over 1, okay? Then you're going to knit your way back over here. So then you're going to slip that, knit, then you're going to knit that top stitch, move it over, knit the top stitch, move it over, knit the top stitch, move it over, knit the top stitch, move it over, and then knit your way over. Okay, you're now over here. You're going to knit the top stitch, move it over, knit the top stitch, and move it over, knit the top stitch, move it over, knit the top stitch, move it over, one more, knit the top stitch, move it over. You now have 2 stitches left. You're going to knit the 2 stitches together. You're going to move the stitch over to the next peg. Okay, then you're going to move that top stitch over here over. Then you're going to knit, slip that one with the 2 stitches, and you're going to knit. Then you're going to knit the next top stitch and move your way back over to the other side. So knit the top stitch. This is stitch stacking, as I'm going to call it. Knit, knit, knit. Okay, then knit your way as usual over. Then we're to our stacked stitches. So what you want to do is you want to knit, move the stitch, knit, move the stitch, knit, move the stitch, knit, move the stitch, knit, then go to the next one, knit those 2 together, move this stitch over 1, then move this stitch over 1, then take this top stitch over here and move it over 1. Okay, then you're going to slip, knit those 2, then knit the top stitch, move it over, knit the top stitch, move it over, knit the top stitch, move it over, knit your way over, and now we're starting to do the stitch shuffling, as you saw how I was doing over there, stitch shuffling. So stitch stacking and stitch shuffling. It's a little tricky, and this is the easiest way I've figured to do it. So toss the bottom loop toss that loop over, toss that top loop over, and move it, toss that top loop over, and move it, toss that top loop over, and move it. Then you're going to knit that one, and then knit those two together here. Then you're going to move it over one. Then you're going to move this one over one, and then move this one over one. Okay? Then you're going to slip that, which means you're not going to knit it or do anything with it. Then you're going to knit your way over, so you're going to knit two. Then you're going to move your stacked stitches back to where they need to be. If you keep them nice and orderly and stacked, you won't screw up. Okay? To keep a nice and orderly stack. Then you work your way over. And you're to your stacked stitches. So knit the top, move it over, knit the next top, move it over, knit the next top, move it over, and then you're going to knit two. Then you have your double stitching here. Knit two together and move it over to the next stitch. Now I'm sure you gathered it's only this one that keeps knitting two together. After you get that done, you shuffle all the stitches over. Okay. Then you don't touch that, and you work your way back over. This time you're knitting three, and then you're to your stacked stitches. So there's knit one, move over, knit one, move over. Then knit your way over to your other stacked stitches. Okay, then you're going to knit that top one, move it over, knit the top one, move it over, knit the top one, move it over. Okay, then you're going to knit two, one, two. Then there's your decrease one where you knit the two together. Then you're going to move that stitch over one. Then you're going to shuffle these stitches over. And shuffle this stitch over. And then take that top one and move it over. Okay, you're not going to touch that peg with the two stitches on it. Then you're going to work your way over. 1, 2, 3. Then you're back to your stacked stitches, so knit the top one, move over. Keep it all nice and organized. Knit the top one, move it over, knit your way over. Alright, to our stacked stitches again, knit the top one, move it over, knit the top one, move it over, knit 3, then your tier decrease one, so knit those 2 together, and then move that stitch over 1. Then shuffle those stitches over by 1 peg, not much more shuffling we'll need to do. Remember, don't do anything to that decreased one. Now you're going to knit 4. You're going to shuffle that stitch over, and then knit your way over. Then you're going to stitch, move, do the top stitch, move it over, knit the top stitch, move it over, then you're going to knit the 3, 1, 2, 3, knit those 2 stitches together, and then you're going to move that over 1. Then stitch shuffle your way over, move all those stitches over. So you're creating the heel flap and the gusset all at the same time. You're doing 2 actions at once. Okay, so don't mess with that with the 2 stitches on it over here. And you want to knit your way back. And that top one, shuffle it over. This looks like it should be our last shuffle. Knit your way over. On both sides, it should be our last shuffle. Okay, and there's our shuffle. Move it over. Knit 4. Okay, then knit those 2 together and move the stitch over by 1. Then move all these stitches over. And the last one to be moved over. There we go. Again, slip that first one, knit your way over. And again, you keep doing this to where you don't have any stacked stitches, as I call it. So you keep shuffling and getting that stacked down to where it's nothing. You could say it's like organizing your way out. So there's our stacked stitch. We're going to move that one over. Then we're going to knit 4. Then we're going to knit the 2 together and move it over 1. Then shuffle the stitches over. There we go. Then you're going to knit your way over. And luckily there's no more stitch stacking. So you're going to knit all the way over. Then at this point, knit those 2 together and then knit all the way around. just go into knitting your cuff. Knit those 2 stitches together and just go about knitting your cuff at this point. Okay, and you are done with your heel flap gusset toe up. And as you can see, there is your heel, and there is your heel flap, and there is your gusset right there. Alright, so that is how you do a toe up heel flap gusset.